All right. So, David, I am happy to see you in this setting, and hopefully this is all working and recording. But it sounds like you are wide awake there. What morning is it for you? What day is this?
That's a very good question, but I believe it's July 21st, 2021, 22. So
And the roosters are your alarm clock there. I hear a lot of roosters in the background.
they get us up and get us going in the morning. So
Good.
yeah,
Good. That's what God made them for. So, just briefly, I wanted to take the chance to just take a minute to set this video up and have our church and maybe some other churches learn a little bit about what you have going on, this campaign that you have going. This is a kind of a special thing. And you and I have talked about it a little bit, but I wanted you to kind of share with the churches what's going on. How did this all get started? So maybe start from the beginning, not the beginning. Maybe for some of the people that don't know who you are, most of the folks in our church know who you are, of course, but we have a lot of new folks that have never met you. So maybe just tell us who you are, where you're at in the world, how long you've been there, and then maybe tell us a little bit about this campaign.
sure. So my name's David Robinson, and I've been in Malawi, Africa since I came here first in 2005 on a survey trip, and then we moved here permanently in 2008. I've been working here since then, and so we've been involved in all the typical independent Baptist missions purposes: soul winning, discipleship, local church planting, and I guess more recently, when I was on a furlough, I ended up. I always try to use the same travel agent, so I called and tried to get tickets to get booked back to come back to Malawi. And the gal that usually takes care of all that for us informed me that she's no longer working there. She's actually working full time with a ministry called Campaigns for Christ, and it was pretty neat situation there. And she, ended up being able to forward me to other people that could help me with the plane tickets. But I got to talking to her, and it was just amazing because the vision that Campaigns for Christ has is just so similar to things that we've been involved with in the past. And the idea is, how do you help people to really physically, literally obey the call to missions? How do you get them? Because we understand that the call to go into all the world and preach the gospel is to all Christians to be involved in one way or the other. And obviously, there's the capacity of just giving, simply giving financially. And then there's other people who they're not called to be a full-time missionary. Go learn a language, go adapt to another culture, and then help to embed the gospel into the hearts and lives of people in that culture. That's not their calling. At the same time, their calling is not just to support financially only. Their calling is to go, learn, have the Lord change their hearts, broaden their perspective. And so that's something that people want to fulfill. But then how do they do that, especially in terms of within the typical normal confines of independent Baptist missions? So this Campaigns for Christ lined up as I got to know the ministry and as I got in touch with the leader of the ministry, Dave Darling. I just found out that, man, they just share such a similar vision to help people go from their pew of their local church to the mission field, literally physically be involved in some kind of work of the gospel, and then to go back to their local church, help fire people up, be an encouragement to the local church, and then really make a difference on the mission field as well. And so
real quickly, I just wanted to say something about that. If what you're describing is basically they're facilitating a missions trip. For instance, a lot of people they do have a desire, but they have to go about it kind of really on their own, right? So they have to contact a missionary, work out a time, ticket arrangements, all those things, which I'm sure is still a fine way to do it. But basically, this ministry is facilitating an opportunity. It sounds like at least once or twice a year in different countries, and it happens that they're coming to Malawi. Is that what
it's several times a year. And Dave Darling, according to what I can see, just talking to him, he has a vision to even do more than that. So he's, he's fully focused on helping these mission trips take place. And yes, it's a major difference between having somebody who can facilitate that and then trying to get all those details worked out on your own. It just makes a huge difference. So the thing that I really appreciated about Dave Darling and their ministry and whatsoever is that they're very clear about where they stand, what they're trying to accomplish, and how they organize themselves. So it's not like a lot of missions trips facilitation programs where you have some kind of a you don't know the doctrinal statement of the people involved. How many times have somebody come to you as a pastor and they I'm gonna go on a missions trip, what are they gonna go do? I don't, whatever, go paint a school block somewhere in some country with a lot of people that they don't even know how to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Just a very wishy-washy type thing. And what I see with Campaigns for Christ and a few other ministries like it is it's doctrinally sound. It's well organized, and to the degree that it can be done. Some of these countries are hard to be organized in. But they really do a good job facilitating people to go overseas and serve in a real capacity. Specifically for Campaigns for Christ, the goal is to pass out on this trip 100,000 John and Romans in 10 days. So pass out 100,000 copies of John and Romans. They're bilingual. They're in English and Chichewa here in Malawi. And then along with each John and Romans, we're passing out an invitation that invites people to come to 3 different preaching points around the city of Mzuzu, in open areas where everybody knows about, everybody knows the location, and then basically set up a stage. We're going to have singing. We're going to have gospel drama where we're going to have, it was really interesting. It's a really neat talent from one of the men in the church here who that's what he does for a living. He organizes messages through acting. And so it's a really good way to draw a crowd and bring people in, and then set up. We have 2 pastors coming on this trip, senior pastors from the States who have just been serving for years and years and years. Each one of them well over 20 years in the pastorate. So dedicated men who are coming over to preach the evangelistic meetings, and then we're going to have local pastors from here follow each of the messages with an evangelistic invitation, and then we're inviting. And this is the awesome part about these meetings. We're going on the streets with all the local independent Baptist pastors that we can find throughout the whole country.
So before you get into that, and I want to make sure the folks that are watching this understand. So the Campaigns for Christ and Brother Darling, they obviously had a vision to come to Malawi. They've been in other countries before. They wanted to come there, contacted you. A couple of the men came over and actually took a survey trip with you. They've been in the country. A lot of legwork, a lot of preparation work has been done preemptively. Obviously, the printing of John and Romans, custom printing in English and in Chichewa is not something you can just go, do at a drop of a hat. So there's been a lot of groundwork, a lot of preparation, a lot of kind of the heavy lifting has been done from the side of the United States. People have been contacted, people have signed up, people have purchased plane tickets. Pastors have really reserved this time to make their availability be possible for these trips. But you mentioned just now on the Malawian side, as the missionary that's there, boots on the ground, what are you doing specifically? You just started to talk about, you mentioned a play, a gospel drama. That's probably unique to this. It's not like every time Campaigns for Christ goes somewhere, there's a gospel drama.
Sure.
This happens to be in the local church there's a talent for that. It's going to be utilized. And then speak about these pastors that are going to be joining this campaign. What does that look like? And tell us a little bit more about that, specifically on your side of organizing.
As far as I've been able to trace, I think we've had independent Baptist missionary efforts starting from as early as like the 1940s. And I've done my
Malawi, you're talking about?
What was Nyasaland at that time and is now Malawi. What I've tried to do over the years is kind of wherever I'm at in Malawi, whoever I can get a hold of, I try to contact people and trace back anything that resembles independent Baptist at all. And so it's not like it is in the States where you have such a plethora of independent Baptist churches that we can afford to divide and, all of those things that happen, splinter and split. So here, there's no real reason to have any divisions whatsoever because we're just not enough anyway. And so, not that we can afford to do that in the States either, but but in reality, there's been a lot of individual efforts over the years to try to do something for the Lord, and it's been independent Baptist missionaries who have come. Generally speaking, because of the nature of the country, people don't end up staying for more than a year and a half or 2 years at the most. That's just what I've seen over the years. And so there's a lot of good that can be done in a year and a half, and then these guys who work with an individual or try to train a pastor or at least get some form of training, they have at least some amount of success, and then they leave. And then what happens to that pastor? What happens to that church? Or what happens to that ministry? Well, oftentimes it's a real struggle to keep everything going. And so what we're trying to do with this ministry, I was reading in one of the early chapters of Revelation a while back, and I just got an answer from the Lord of what to do through a verse that says, strengthen the things that remain. So just focus on sort of locating and finding these different churches that have been started or pastors that have started training and then they've had their training minister leave or is not available in the country anymore, and then try to strengthen whatever's there. That's the goal. And so in this situation, we want to really lay the foundation for how we can start having some real impacts and some real helps to these pastors. Most of them, John, they just live in poverty. You can't be in the ministry and have absolutely nothing. They either work or very low paying jobs, which by that I mean $1.50 a day, something like that, which is just impossible to stay afloat on.
Are you talking about the pastors?
The pastors themselves, yeah, they're scattered throughout the country. They're trying to stay faithful.
They wouldn't necessarily have a tremendous amount of support coming from the United States, from whoever possibly trained them, maybe in some cases, but these are bivocational, truly independent churches, congregations, pastors, bivocational by the pastor. They're living, working, ministering in the community with no support system.
You will find some of them that have some support from their former missionary coming in from the States, but again, it's maybe, I can think of maybe two people that are like that. Everybody else is on their own, trying to either raise livestock for a living or grow corn maize and sell it. Really just focused on personal survival, because that's really all that can be done here in Malawi. Malawi is always between the first and third ranked poorest nation in the entire world. That needs to be, kept in the back of one's mind. It's not like, you cross the border into Tanzania and Zambia, you cross the border into Mozambique, and you feel like you're, in just this paradise of wealth. As far as a comparison goes, any of those countries feel sorry for Malawi. They do feel like, oh man, they're really behind. So it's that kind of a context. And so the vision in the long term is to set up a complete organized way of helping these men that are bivocational already, no choice whatsoever, how to help them go through a very short but helpful training in some kind of a business foundation, so that they're not just winging it per se, but that they have some sort of a formal training, even if it's just very short term, maybe 2 weeks seminars or something like that. And then to provide application system for them to be able to apply for financial loans and to work their way up through those financial loans to where they take a small loan and then start a small business. And our board here monitors that business and sees that it is actually successful. And then they take another step forward and they apply for a larger loan. And we have all that is in the works that's being, organized on our end. But the long-term vision is to be able to do whatever needs to be done for people who actually preach the truth of the gospel and preach true biblical doctrine, to not just be hanging by a thread, Lord willing. So that's the long-term goal. In this immediate application is, how do we even communicate to them that we want to be a help to them? So this evangelism it serves two purposes. One, it provides us a platform to really involve them in something that we're doing. Right. That is absolutely everybody can be involved in evangelism. There's nobody who would say, no, we shouldn't pass out tracts. So, something that's just easily accessible to them, a vision that's very good, that involves them. And then two, for the foreigners that are coming, we have about 25 people that are coming on this trip from America, and we don't really want them walking around town with no interpreter, no guide, no way to defend themselves against pestering people or something like that. We want there to be somebody who can share the gospel in the local language with them at all times. And right. So we're going to be focused on passing out the literature. And they're, it is when you're a foreigner, you attract attention. Okay, right. So that's going to be awesome, an awesome tool to use. And then with the local church pastors that we're bringing in from all over the country, literally from the border of Mozambique to the border of Tanzania, we have somebody coming in from all corners of the country. The pastors. Now that brings the pastors so that they can be on the streets, they can actually serve with the foreigners that are coming and be effective. That's the point, is trying to be effective with what we're doing. So that brings, that's where it's a matter of saying, hey, look, one way or the other, I don't want to compromise the vision for any reason. So that's where we made a decision of faith and said, hey, we're going to be involved. We're going to support this. Let's sit down. Let's create a budget for all the transportation coming in, the lodging for all these pastors for 10 days, all the food, all the meals. And obviously we have, I think we've invited 38 independent Baptist pastors throughout the country. And so we have those people coming in, and then we have some Bible Institute students coming from the very most southern Bible Institute that was set up by a missionary, the very most northern Bible Institute, which was set up by me about 1.5 years ago. And then in the central region, there was a missionary there years ago, and he had set up a Bible Institute, and that pastor is carrying it on. So we're actually inviting the Bible Institute students as well. Great. In order to bring them in and just get them familiar with what our focus is, which is helping preach the gospel, obviously, and help people to understand what does it mean to be saved. That's the focus.
I'm hearing what you're talking about, and I'm imagining trying to do that here in the States. Like if I was supposed to be heading this up and putting something like that together, it seems almost impossible to even imagine like all the logistics to something like that, and that's even here in the States. I'm sure it could be done, but looks like I might have lost you. You still there? Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
In Malawi of all places, and then with the transportation, lodging, food, the budgets of these men, it just sounds almost overwhelming. Has it been going well? Is it Is it?
So basically, I could say like this. I could say without the men that I have to work with here, the very faithful men, it would not be possible at all. Like I couldn't do this by myself. So the Lord has really brought together a great team for me here to work with. So we've divided all the responsibilities into subsectors to say there's going to be a complete subsector of transportation, and there's going to be a person who that's all he takes care of is everything that has to do with transportation. Food is another major one because you can't afford to feed this many people. We're basically going to be feeding over 100 people for 10 days. So it could add up. But if you have a person who's basically set up over all the subject of food, which we do, then we basically, I mean, we're calling in every favor, right? We're going out to the villages. We're buying, you know, the raw materials, grain, corn, whatever, rice from the villagers who are farming it, and we're bringing it in. And then so these guys sort of coordinate, you know, everything, transportation and food, and then bring it all in. And then we have a guy who we've hired, a chef, to come and work for us just for these 10 days. And then we, just because of some of the other functions that we've had, we've got a lot of the pots and pans that are basic. We still need to buy quite a bit more for the serving dishes and all that. But basically, we did a price comparison on the cost of actually paying per plate in any other kind of food catering service or restaurant, and it was just astronomical, you know. So we've opted to go with this route. But yeah, we've got a guy who's over that. He's taking care of all that, and then he submits all the budgets to our group. And then when we come up with a good plan, then we approve it, and then we basically keep going with it. And then the other coordinator is the personnel coordinator. So there's a guy, one of the pastors, that's just his only job is he has a spreadsheet of every name and every contact information and for every day that the person is going to be here, and then what ministry he comes from, and whether he's a pastor or whether he's a Bible Institute student or a member. So he's the personnel coordinator. So these guys, without these three guys, like it would just basically be impossible.
Who are these men, and we can pray for them?
This is so Alex Mwenekifungwe is the transportation coordinator. He's doing everything that has to do with transportation. And then you have Markanton Mwandiride, who's over the food and all the hustle to get all the food stuff figured out. That's on him. And then Pastor Daniel Yerenda, so he's doing the personnel coordinating. So he's receiving all the visitors. Everybody that comes into the bus depot or who drives into town gets welcomed by him. He takes them, shows them their lodging, and then gives them orientation and all that stuff. And we've got, we've got all the instructions, all the guidelines, all the structure of who's doing what. It's all, you know, in print, and it's been sent to all these guys so that there's it's the first time that we've ever done anything like this.
Is it the first time? I know obviously it's the first time you've ever done anything like this. I mean, has anything like this ever been done in Malawi before that you know of, as far as to this level? Maybe that's gospel centric?
No, not at all. The issue is that we all know we can, you know, it might be a heavy task to get independent Baptists together. Sometimes we feel independent of each other as well, which has never been, I don't think, the design of the idea of independent Baptists. So there's been a lot of overcoming to do with that, a lot of conversations on the phone, a lot of trying to share the vision of what needs to be done in the long term in Malawi, and how this could actually be a foundation for that. And fortunately, once, you know, a soft answer turneth away wrath. I mean, it's just how it is. So once you come in and just say, hey, look, you know, that we're trying to be a blessing. We need to focus on the main goal, which is the unsaved people getting saved, and the saved people getting discipled, and discipled people getting into local churches.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. So once you can shift the focus out of the individual ministries and onto the purpose, a lot of these guys have just said, hey, you know what, I agree with that. That's a great vision. And, you know, there's been a lot of collaboration at this point. So
So I just got a few minutes left here, but I wanted to just maybe you can wrap things up with it sounds like you got a great vision, obviously not just from the Malawian side, but a ministry here that's designed specifically to help out. You got groundwork that's been laid, a lot of coordination, a lot of logistical things that have happened. It sounds like from what I'm hearing, you have somewhat of a limited or maybe not so much limited response. Are you have these 37 or 38 pastors? Do you have a pretty good response rate? Are they coming?
Yeah, they're confirmed. They're on their way. I mean, unless anything comes up in between now and then, but they're that's we have right now, I believe, 60 people who are confirmed who we're going to be. So
you have
that's pastors. Yeah.
You have the response and you have the team in place. Obviously, the vision is great. The John and Romans are there in country. Everything is ready to be delivered. The stage has been set. I'm imagining there's a huge cost associated with this, or at least from what I would think. From what I understand, the Campaigns for Christ, they take all the cost of their own transportation. Anything they don't want to give missionary. I've talked to Pastor or Brother Darling personally about that. I know he's very, very focused on not being a burden to the missionary financially. So I'm assuming they have all their costs covered. What are some of the costs on your end in country to help these pastors to set this vision, to perhaps lay the groundwork for future cooperative work for Bible believing independent Baptist, churches and ministries in Malawi? What is this costing to do?
Right. So what I really appreciate about Brother Darling and the Campaigns for Christ is that they're allowing us to sort of mesh these two visions because both of them are awesome. To come and give out literature it's an awesome experience for the people coming. They're going to learn something. God's going to open their eyes to something while they're here. And we also have this awesome vision of trying to, at some point, see collaborative independent Baptist work here in the country of Malawi start to be able to send out their own evangelists and start to be able to open their own churches and sort of work with each other, at least to the degree that we do, where a missionary comes through one church and he leaves and goes to the next church, or an evangelist the same, and whatsoever. That's sort of that blood flow of the church. So that's kind of the vision to see happen here. These are great visions. As a person who understands budgets and whatsoever, I talked to Brother Darling very clearly that I don't want to take our costs of our one of our main focuses in this is to help these independent Baptist churches get on the same page or a similar page. Whereas the Campaigns for Christ has never really, they want to be a blessing to the local churches, don't get me wrong, but to do something of this magnitude was not maybe their primary purpose or vision coming into the country. I don't want to spend their money on something that we have that the Lord has given me a clear vision for here. So when we sat down and added it up, it came out to around $9,000, what we are trying to do here. And so that's what we know is for sure the budget. You know how things go. There's always costs more than what you put on the budget, but that's the figure that we came up with is $9,000 for what we are trying to do. And so and I'm not trying to make a huge separation between what Campaigns for Christ are doing and what we're doing, but it's really a meshing. And but budget wise, I don't want to speak for their finances. So that's a commitment that we made by faith, and we're not worried about it. We're going to do it, and God's going to provide. So however that works, we have no idea, but that's how it always goes. So, we're committed to it, and then we'll see what the Lord does.
For the Lord to provide, obviously he does it through his people, and he does it through mysterious ways, but most of the time it's through his people. So if anybody wanted to jump in and help contribute toward this particular campaign and the work there in Malawi, but specifically this particular campaign with helping these pastors get together, being a part of this campaign, and literally contributing toward the real opportunity to see a lot of souls get saved there. What would be the best way to contribute toward that? Do you have something set up? Is there something that's in place that you could refer people to?
Well, if local churches and their financial, department or whatever, if they don't mind, I usually think it's best to take up an offering in the local church and then have the local church forward that. That seems to work really well. If somebody wants to contribute directly to us, they can go on to a website for the Bible Baptist Mission Board, and that's www.biblebaptistmission.org, and that's www.biblebaptistmission.org. And then they have to kind of click through the website and go to the contribute button and then scroll through the list of missionary names and then select my name. And then there's a place where you can put in a note that, you can just write down Campaigns for Christ, or Independent Baptist Support Center of Malawi, IBSCOM. That's the sort of the heading that we're working under here locally. So either way, as long as it's demarcated, I'll be able to see that it's specifically for this. So that's probably the easiest way. We have PayPal set up as well. So really whichever avenue works best. But I find that through the local churches, it just works really well.
Yeah, taking up an offering. Well, I know that's the intent with us. We're going to take up an offering in our congregation. And if there's anyone watching this independently that wants to contribute, besides the methods that David just described, you can make a contribution on the Bible Believers Baptist Church website in Hillsboro, Oregon. It's bbbcpdx.com, bbbcpdx.com. And you go to giving, and I believe there's a drop-down tab for missions, and you should be able to send a note in there. But in any case, definitely going to be praying about this. Have been already, obviously, but hopefully a lot more people jumping on board with really supporting this in prayer. What are the dates for this campaign, by the way, that's start to finish?
They're leaving on August the 1st. The group from the States is leaving August the 1st, so prayer around that time. And then they're getting here on the 2nd. They're actually going to wake up, and then they have a travel to do within the country. Then they have wake up here on the 3rd. For the orientation day, and then the preaching dates where we're going to go out every day up until the 12th, but then the preaching dates are the 5th of August, the 6th of August, and the 11th of August. And those are the dates where we actually try to congregate, a group of people and preach to them. So those are the dates we need a lot of prayer.
Amen. Well, we do know there's going to be opposition too, so prayer support, and obviously is critical. That's the primary thing. Financial support is very helpful. I really hope that these pastors see the opportunity to work together and really see something get accomplished in a significant way, if for nothing else, just to be encouraged by being around other ministers and be a part of this campaign. I'm sure is going to be a blessing to them. So anything else in parting? Anything else you want to say? Or
no, just thank you to churches, local churches like there in Bible Believers Baptist and other churches around the country. We wouldn't be able to do anything without the prayer support and the financial support that you guys uphold us with. So really appreciative of that.
Is there a website where people can go and see what's going on in the ministry there? Anywhere you can send people if they want to get updated on newsletters or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. You can go to robinsons2malawi.org. That's Robinsons, then the number 2 Malawi, MALAWI, Robinsons2Malawi and then .org. So,
okay.
And then you go to click our latest news and you'll see our prayer letters and whatsoever.
And do I understand it right? Those prayer letters on the website are a little more lengthy and have a little more information than just the mailed ones?
Right. Yeah. Pictures and videos and all that stuff. I try to put that stuff in there as much as possible. So.
Very good. Okay, man. I love you. Hope you do well, and looking forward to seeing what comes of this.
Amen. Appreciate it.